Welcome to the New England and New York Real Estate Journal podcast. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan, and my guest today is Yiannes Einhorn, and he is the principal at NYREJ Group. Good morning, Yiannes.
Good morning, Rick.
So, Yiannes, tell me a little bit about what you're all about and your story in the industry.
Sure, happy to. So I got into the industry after college in 2001, 2002. My entry into the industry was actually in the home inspection business. I joined my father in a company that's called Old House Inspection Company, predominantly doing brownstone and row house type inspections in the brownstone neighborhoods of Brooklyn and Manhattan predominantly. Was in that business for about 5 to 10 years with my father, and it slowly segued into identifying interesting neighborhoods and interesting buildings that would have the opportunity to purchase. And then around 2007, 2008, bought my first brownstone, a row house type building in Park Slope, and did a 4-family conversion of that building into 4 units, into 4 condo units. Sold the apartments, made more money selling those 4 apartments than I did the last 5 years working for my father. And I said, you know what? I think it's time to stay in this development game. And then it went on to do a number of other conversions, and then we sort of took the leap of faith into doing ground up, and really never looked back once you toggle and you're willing to take that leap to get into the ground up construction and you get comfortable with it, it's hard to go back to the conversion stuff.
Now let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you wanted to go and buy that brownstone, did your father say to you, no, don't do it, it's a bad idea? You know, I'm giving you good advice. Don't do it.
Well, it did take an awful lot of convincing. A lot of it had to do with price, saying, Yanni, you're out of your, what mind. The last time I bought a brownstone in this neighborhood, it was, $75,000. You're going to buy this building for $1 million? You crazy? I said, well, Dad, last time you bought a building was 30 years ago. Times, people are buying apartments for $1 million each, let alone buildings. So it just, he was out of the market for a long time. So it took a little convincing. And I didn't have much money. So not only did I have to convince him that I thought it was a good idea, I had to convince him to put up some of the money. It was,
I had a similar experience. My father, an old time offered a building to me. He was going to finance it. It was $78,000. I think it had like 10 apartments in it, but at the time in Boston, they had rent control.
Yeah.
And it was more headaches than it was worth to him. So he said, you take it over, I'll finance it. I said to my father, I was only like 21 years old. I said to my father, well, this sounds like a great deal. I should go and do it. He said, no, what do you want to be a landlord for? We're crazy. And about 10 years ago, it sold for $10 million.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So the moral of the story, never listen to your parents.
Right.
But your father and your whole family, they were all architects, correct?
That's right. My father is an architect. My mother passed away when I was young. She was an architect. In fact, they met at an architectural practice. My stepmother was an architect, and my grandfather, who I'm named after, was a very well-known architect in Greece. So yeah, it's in the blood.
So everyone went into being an architect, and you said you're not really interested in that, or you were, but you didn't.
I think I think I knew I wasn't going to be a design professional for I didn't want to be a design professional for other people's projects. What I did see in seeing my family business as architects, particularly my father, was the entrepreneurial aspect of being an architect. Where, you know he kind of told me early on that to have to be your own client is exciting as an architect. To have other clients is okay too, but it's very challenging. And getting paid is challenging. Selling your time and your services is challenging. So if you can either make that finite, aka the home inspection business, you walk in, you meet a client, you look at a building, you get paid, you might answer a couple questions, and then you're done. You're not getting phone calls at 10 o'clock at night about the tile that they want to pick for their powder room. So I think that was just a smart decision, and I was very interested in construction and details, and worked in construction for many summers and many years. So I like that aspect of it, and then I ended up studying business in college, but inevitably got back into the home inspection and construction related business, and then of course development.
So are you still in the home inspection industry?
I no longer am, and our company has pretty much wound down at this point as I kind of removed myself from it. Yeah.
Is that still a viable industry?
Yeah, no, I mean very much so. We always gave the analogy of you wouldn't buy a used car without having a mechanic look at it, right? And that's you might buy a used car for 10 grand. I don't know, 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, or even more. Of course, a high-end used car, you wouldn't,
Right.
If it didn't have a warranty, you would likely give a few $100 to have a mechanic look at it. So imagine you're buying, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million house. It's pretty nuts to not spend $500 to $1,000 and have a professional look at it, right?
Well, I just
So
know that during
yeah,
the whole pandemic thing, and then the housing market going crazy, homeowners that were selling their homes, they were saying, well, I have 100 people in line wanting to put an offer in on this house. If you want to waive the home inspection and things like that, we'll
sure,
sell it to you. I'm just
sure.
wondering,
Well,
did that sort of hurt the
um,
business?
I didn't hurt the business. From what I understand, it didn't hurt the business that much. But I do know what you mean. Wave contingencies. In New York City, in the markets that we were in, they weren't contingent upon home inspections anyway. Almost everywhere else outside of New York, a home inspection is a contingency. So you might sign a contract, then you have 30 days to do your due diligence, and if you walk away, you walk away, and your deposit is soft, right? You get it back if if you can't come to terms. In New York, you have a handshake on a price, and they say if you want to do any due diligence, you got between now and when the contract is organized to get it done. So our business was we get a phone call, we had to be there the next day and turn a report the following day. So it was in the time period that an attorney would send a contract and you start negotiating, we would do our job. That was generally that's how it worked in New York, because there rarely were there contingencies. So it didn't change that much for New York. It was the same.
Well, let's bring things up to the current times, which is
Please.
you're buying and developing some of these still brownstones, or just taking like mills, or what are you
Sure.
doing now?
No, we kind of went away from the smaller row house brownstone type projects, and our focus is mainly ground up, and I'd say project sizes from 25, 30,000 square feet on the small side to 100,000 square feet on the large side. So we're squarely, and I'd say in the mid rise and mid size projects. Our unit counts are anywhere from 5 or 10 units if it's a smaller project to 40 or 50 units. That's kind of the range of what we do. So it's still very boutique in nature, but not as boutique as a 4-unit brownstone.
So you developed a property during the COVID period and actually started selling, what was it, condos?
I think you're referencing 124 West 16th Street. Yep, yep.
So
Yes.
you were selling those condos during the time of COVID, and you were sold out on them during that
Uh,
time.
yeah, yeah, we did. No, thank you. We're very proud of that project. And we sold out, mind you, during the first 2 months of COVID, not during, 6 months or a year later when everybody went on a buying frenzy and interest rates went to zero.
Right.
So we did it. We sold at a time where people weren't sure if they were gonna, make it till next week. I shouldn't laugh, but that was very much the sentiment.
Well, it was also
Yeah,
a
no,
time when people were moving out of the city.
and people were fleeing out of the city. So the project we got our like C of O, a month or two before COVID, and really started and started launching sales for that project right around the time that COVID became a thing. We had about 12 units to sell, 15 units to sell, and yeah, and we sold all of them within about 3-4 months, with the exception of one that sold that following September, so about 5 months later. We were really the talk of town. It was exciting because we were the only project to launch and fully sell out, I think, during that year, believe it or not. And we held our pricing. We did very well. The units checked a lot of boxes. They were, mostly larger, 3, 4, 5 bedroom apartments. They had almost all of them had outdoor spaces. So they checked a lot of boxes. People were unsure about sharing spaces at the time, so they wanted to have their own outdoor space. They weren't going to the office, so they needed that third, fourth, or fifth room to work from home, or a couple each needed a room to work from home, and then they wanted a Peloton room for
So
the
that was
last
kind
week.
of the perfect type of
Yeah,
uh, project for the time.
yeah, it
Even though
was.
you didn't know it was going to fit into that period, but you kind of hit all the boxes that fit the COVID era.
That were what people were looking for. Yeah, yeah. No, sometimes it's good to be lucky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we designed. We very much like designing those sort of homes for people who want to live and stay in New York, and that's what we do. So they'll be often larger, high design, built for families. That's what we did for that project.
So
Um,
that's your model of developing is to build projects like that.
we have a mix of them, but yeah, that project in particular was really geared for that. A lot of most of them, I would say, are geared for that size and style of property. I mean, we're doing. Having said that, we just finished a project in Brooklyn that we launched in Park Slope, and that has units that range from very efficient kind of 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms. So they're still young families, young professionals, even singles. That has a little bit more of a unit mix. But the project you referenced on 16th Street, were virtually all large, family size units.
Now, what kind of price range are these running in?
Um, the project that's in Chelsea that was on 16th Street, they were apartments that ranged from 5 to 12 million bucks.
Oh, so they were fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, an everyman apartment. Yeah,
That's what they call affordable housing, right?
it's well, it's hard to say it with a straight face, but believe it or not, a $5 million, 4 bedroom in the heart of Chelsea is in new construction is considered reasonable.
Right.
It's I know it's self-serving to say that, but it's believe it or not, a fair price these days.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're selling $1 million 2 bedrooms in Park Slope now, and that's also similarly considered a very, that's an entry point.
Yeah, $1 million is nothing nowadays
Yeah.
for a piece of real
Yes.
estate, especially in the city. So
Yeah.
do
No.
you don't focus on anything but New York City?
We do. That's it. We are only New York City,
Now, do you
and
plan on venturing out?
No, it's really important for me personally and my team to really touch and feel everything every day. And even to the point that we're really focused mostly in certain neighborhoods now because of convenience, because of our office, because we're so construction oriented and detail oriented that we want to be on our job sites every day. And as soon as something is in a different borough or a different neighborhood or is harder to get to, it just becomes neglected. It's human nature. And I think we're really focused on finding projects that are in close proximity to where we live, where we operate, what we know. So it's important. I think it's a strategy, and it's something that yeah, it's what we
Yeah,
do. And we don't invest in other people's projects, so we're only in our own.
right.
So.
Now, you said that you build most of your projects from ground up.
Yes.
It must be very difficult to find that kind of land, I should say, in the city.
Yeah, it's rarely land. It's usually buildings that we demolish and start anew. It is difficult. It's very challenging. It's hard to get to assemble large enough sites to do scale. Which is why where we fit in, we're willing to do, a pair of townhouses, for example, that might be a 40-foot or a 50-foot lot that you could build a 30 to 50,000 square foot project. That's appealing for us. It's boutique in nature. We can really do something high design and clever. But a lot of people in my business say, I can't afford to make that work. It's too small. It's the same amount of effort that goes into that 40,000 square foot project as it does to a 400,000 square foot project that's a full corner. It's going to take you 3 years. You're going to go through architects, you're going to have project managers, you're going to put a lot of risk, a lot of time, a lot of effort. I'd rather do something that's 300,000 square feet than 30.
Right.
But we're willing. We like those boutique projects. I think because of the ability to manage them and keep control and quality control, and so we're able to find these little pockets and opportunities. But it is challenging.
So you wouldn't do a retrofit?
No, I'd say that we would, but they're even harder to find. To find a nice vacant building that can be converted. I mean, now today with what's happening in the office sector, I actually, frankly, I would have thought there would have been more opportunities to do conversions of existing, vacant or to be vacant buildings, but they haven't really come across my desk yet.
Yeah, well, everyone's kind of saying how difficult it is when you have to take an office and convert it to some kind of residential building.
Yeah, it's like there's challenges with light and air. There's challenges with zoning, which I know the legislation is trying to fix or make it easier anyway. But, certain pockets of New York, it's primed for that, and there are already zoning variances that allow for residential conversion. Not variances, zoning allowances, frankly, that allow for conversion. I think it's price. What nobody wants to really talk about is this price sensitivity.
Right.
If you want $600 a foot for your vacant office building, nobody's going to buy it. If you want $200 a foot, somebody will buy it and make it work, right? So that's the reality of what's happening. It's not that you can't or it won't or it's too hard. It's dollars and cents.
So you're basically focused on multifamily only.
Yes. Yeah. The exception would be a storefront, in a multifamily, right? So we might have a retail component of a multifamily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and virtually all condominium, and resale as condominium. That's been my business model.
Oh, so you don't own any kind of apartment complex or apartment buildings?
Very, very few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything is you fix them, build them, and you sell it.
Correct. Buy and sell.
And then you just have that HOA fee that take care of all the cost of.
No, believe it or not, we do not stay in the buildings from the management perspective. We're not in the building management business. We stay in for the first year or so to help. We don't even collect a fee. No, it's modest fees come from the development. So you just always have projects in the pipeline to keep the lights on, and the real reward comes from the success of the project.
So you So you said you used to have a year free of the the maintenance. You used to take care of it.
Oh, no, no, sorry, the homeowners association. I thought you meant, we do not stay in the condominium association or homeowners
Oh, okay.
association
Yeah.
for, as a manager for the first 5 years or 10 years, or until they kick you out,
Right.
and you collect a fee. Some developers have a management division for which they install themselves as the manager of the homeowners association
Right.
and collect fees. And we stay involved for the first year or two, especially if we own units still. But really gratis in terms of, our expertise and knowledge of the building. And of course, we pay our own homeowners dues
Right.
because if we still own units. So it's just not our business model. The management business is not our business model. Quite
Now
frankly, probably should be, but
I noticed that you live in Miami.
no, I live in New York.
Oh, you live in New York. Oh, I don't know what.
I'm in New York City right now.
Oh,
I'm actually,
I
yeah.
had an address of Miami.
Oh,
Uh,
no,
oh, okay.
no, that would be hard
And
for
I
me to
and I
say.
see the sun coming through the window behind you.
Yeah. No, it just happens to be a beautiful day in New York. Yeah, yeah. Um, no, I do not. No, as I said, it's critical for us to be walking and seeing every job site every day. So I couldn't do that
Right.
in Miami. Yeah.
Well, that's why when I saw the address and I said, "Oh, so you live in Miami, but all your projects are in New York." But you live in New York, and that's why all your projects are in New York.
And New York. Right. Although there was a lot of New York developers that all their projects are in Miami right now.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I did an interview with someone that is from Miami. He focuses on projects in New York and New Jersey. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but if you're a developer, you go where it makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. It does. And we see a lot of people are focused in Florida by way of example. They saw a lot of flight of population there, and have done very well. Not It's just not our business model. Again, we're New Yorkers here to stay and believe in the city and believe in that people want to live here. Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll continue on. You're doing your projects in New York City, and at some point, I guess you're going to have to do some retrofits because you only have a small percentage of land that you can work with there. So you're going to have to probably go into a different direction at some point, I would think.
Um, yeah, I think, I guess eventually all of the, underperforming or smaller parcels will be, demolished and accumulated, and larger buildings will be. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, um, or or the ones that I built, will be 60 years old and will be deemed obsolete, and then the new ones will take their place. Yeah, I do. I think the market is going to heat up soon for conversion projects. It's ripe for it. Um, but I just don't. Again, I just think the pricing fundamentals and the legislation in terms of tax abatement and other programs to make it more user friendly to convert these buildings, it just hasn't clicked yet. So,
So you think you have some more longevity than what I'm saying?
I do. I think so. We're seeing deals every day for projects that are tear downs, or that are
Well, I'm sure
it's
you
just
get to see that kind of thing before anyone else because you're in the city. You have all the connections that if you're a developer from Miami, let's say, you're not going to get at that unless you have boots on the ground in New York, I guess.
yeah. I think there's some truth to that for sure. And I think being a um having a success, having a track record, having success, being in the news for putting deals together for closings. There's a lot of people in my business that, put a shingle on the door and say they're in the real estate business or the developer. And they end up, they retrade, they don't close on deals, they flip, they do all kinds of stuff. And if you do too much of that, you're not getting the phone calls anymore for
Right. Well, I did
the
see
right deals.
I saw pictures of some of your properties, and they were all that have that very nice finish touch to them. Very high end look.
Yeah.
Is that your theme?
Yeah, it's our theme. I think it's what we do. It's what we do well. It's our theme. They're highly finished, highly polished. You can move right in. People have been often are waiting for our projects to be built, and we have people who are excited about them and are on the sidelines waiting for the next one. Because I think, again, with the size and the scale of projects that we're doing, we're delivering very much custom homes. It's like a home builder who builds 4 houses in a subdivision and does these beautiful, high-end homes that here's the key, you move right in. It's kind of analogous to that. With the flowers in the planting bed in the front of the house already, right? Like it's just ready to go. So it's what we have done well. I'm really proud of the fact that the vast majority of the people that we sell apartments to have been in the market for more than a year. And so what that means is they come in, they see it, they've seen everything, they see ours, and they buy ours, right? Because it makes the difference. And it's something that we've been really proud of. We poll the audience of who we're buying to, because we're often in these smaller buildings. It's very intimate. You get to know them. You get to know a lot of the people who are purchasing, and you kind of hear the stories. And so we're really proud of that. I mean, it's part of.
Well, that will give you longevity in itself. Good reputation seems to last a long time.
Yeah, I think so. When we've sold to multiple people multiple times who have followed us across projects, I think that says something. We've sold to friends of multiple people that we've sold apartments to. I think that says something. So yeah.
So they like you.
Or they like our product, or they like us, or we don't run away. Like there's always going to be problems, right? There's new construction is always going to be something, and hopefully it's minor, and you stand behind it. And that's that's it. It's not that hard.
So Yanni, it sounds like you're doing a great job there. So if someone wants to see some of your projects, what's your website?
Thank you. Gridgroup.com. So grid, GRID, group, GROUP, .com. We have a terrific project that's just launched in Park Slope on Baltic and 4th, which we're really excited about halfway through sales in a couple months. Launched well, has had really good reception. So love for people to check that out. You see another one of our really terrific projects on Central Park North on 110th, right on the park, which we only have a handful of units left there too, and those are really special apartments. We're busy.
So, that made me think about a question I want to ask you, because
Sure.
I haven't seen this in a while. They used to do these pre-construction sales.
Right.
So you have a project that you're gonna start. Before you start it, you try selling the projects at that time. Do you do that? Or does anyone do that anymore?
No, I think most large scale projects, frankly, have to do it because they have financing requirements and hurdles that they have to hit. And without having a certain amount of pre-sales, it's just impossible to get that momentum. Because of the smaller nature of our projects, we often wait until we have almost a fully complete building, and certainly complete units. We're not doing things with renderings and floor plans and sales offices and things of that nature. It's just not a market that we've tapped into. Not to toot our own horn, but I think we sort of over deliver our product too. Again, kind of speaking to the success we've had in the people who we generally sell to. That that there's always been this game in the development business where you build a sales office, you get the A-team carpenters to come in and build this incredibly beautiful thing, and then you explain your way out of everything when you actually sell the end units. Oh, they didn't have that stone anymore. Oh yeah, no, that counter, those kitchens were not really available when we went to develop. Oh yeah, no, I know you love that tile in the bathroom, but I'm sorry, it wasn't, it was no longer, or the details are different. And it's really shameful in many ways, but also, we're about managing expectations. And what's better to say, here's a beautiful apartment, it's finished to the nines, and here's the keys, you can move in tomorrow. So that's been our business model. As our projects have become a little bit bigger and financing requirements have become more onerous, I would say, we are going to start trying to expedite finishing apartments to get a handful of apartments ready to show early. But yeah, it's different. It's different than the Miami market, where things are sold off of paper or sales offices all the time. It's also different in New York because you can't release deposits. So a lot of projects in Florida and other areas are financed via early sales and deposits. In New York, it doesn't work that way. So it's not much. Yeah.
So that doesn't happen much in New York.
It doesn't happen at all. You can't.
Yeah.
The Attorney General's office doesn't allow it. So
they got rid of the used car salesman that went into the condo business or the real estate business.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's huge barriers to entry to be involved in the New York roundup, condo business. It's a lot of risk. There's a lot of reward, but there's a lot of risk because all these things you can't pre-sell very effectively.
Right.
You can't, it's really all about, it's 3 years away, if you're lucky, from when you make a decision to go on a project, often longer than that. Nobody has a crystal ball, right? So,
well, there's a strategy to people that know how to work in this industry. There's a strategy on how you put it all together and how you come to the end without going broke. Because the financing could kill you if it goes a year longer than it should.
Yes, the finance, and when money was so cheap, that was a little less of an issue. But now that it is so expensive to borrow to build, construction loan, development loan, schedule is everything. Yeah. And also that's where some pre-sales come in to be very important. You say, look, I'll leave a little money on the table, sell a handful of units early to know that as soon as I'm done, I can close, because the money I'm going to save in interest, because I can have a handful of quick closings, will be more than what I would have made by holding out.
Right.
And so these are all they're obvious decisions, but these are ones that are made, that have to be made, and are made on the large scale projects. There really is no choice. It is schedule is key.
And what about the materials and the costs? Have you been able to deal with all that?
Yeah, we have. We wear many hats, one of which is also in the construction management side of the business. So we're very involved in the buyouts and the contractors and the day-to-day. And it's been, you become desensitized a little bit because things have obviously gotten more expensive, but things seems to have leveled. I don't look back and go, oh, I could have built that for $200 a foot. Now it's $400. I mean, those days are gone, right? So now you're at a new watermark, high watermark. It doesn't seem to be going ballistically, above that as it felt for 10 years. It seems to have stabilized quite a bit.
Right.
And people are hungry. Contractors are more hungry. Obviously, there's less projects getting built. So I think
that's a good thing for you.
Yeah. But again, I'm not seeing it go down to where it was 3 years ago. Basically, when I say somebody's hungry, they look, I would have done it for X dollars last year. I'll hold that price.
Right.
It's not. I don't confuse it with things going backwards. That's for sure. That never happens. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
I want to thank you, Yanni, for coming on the show. Very interesting. I love hearing about developing in New York City, because if anyone that has gone to New York City and you walk around there, you say, "Oh, they'll never be able to fit anything else in the city." It's like jam-packed now. But
yeah,
I always
yeah.
see as someone that's always people developing. Hmm.
There's ways to do it, but look, it's also the zero lot line, right? So you a lot when I say lot line, like you're on a zero lot line condition. So that's also what's crazy about New York, and I think other cities too. But just that, you buy a parcel, you're touching six neighbors,
Right.
right? And you have to figure out and six foundation elements and six building heights and six roofs and six personalities. And not only six personalities, two of those six might have 50 personalities because it's a condo or a co-op.
Right.
So you could do an entire podcast just on neighbor relations uh, and what that means in New York City.
Yeah, no, I realize that, that's a difficult part of the whole beginning process of
Ooh,
putting these projects together, you know,
very, very hard. Very hard.
because it, out of 50, you could have five that are against it. And that five will delay it as long as possible.
Yeah, look, if you can be an obstructionist and it means that you get to keep a window for an extra year, what do you have to lose? Be an
Right.
obstructionist. You know, hey,
Yeah.
hey, you know, it's human nature. I'm not saying it's right, but it's human nature.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing a lot of that is still in place, but when you're talking about good sized projects, the developers are usually ready for the long haul. So those people they would get worn down after a little time, and the
Yes,
projects end up going through.
generally that's so, especially because the projects are generally equity rich in the beginning, right? So you don't have a tremendous amount of carry in the beginning where you're feeling a lot of pain. So the developers, okay, I got a lot of cash in this thing. It's cash. Sure, we're IRR driven. It matters if it takes an extra year, but at least I don't have the 1,000 pound gorilla on my back. And let's go. You want to fight? I guess we'll fight. And then at the end, it's more complicated when you've got
Yeah.
millions or tens of millions of dollars of debt and you just got to finish. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you, Yanni. I appreciate you coming on. And your website again is gridgroup.com, right?
Yes. Thank you.
And if anyone's interested in finding out about some of the projects, they can go to that website. There's also contact information, I'm assuming, on your website.
Indeed, no, indeed, there is, and I think many of the projects that still have open sales have links to the sales agent sites. And yeah, and our phone is always open, or an email. Yeah.
Also there's some great pictures on how you finish these apartments off, these condos off, because they're very, very high end looking. So
Well, thank you for noticing. We try. I appreciate that.
yeah, I always notice, because you can tell when something has a nice finish to it. You can see that there was some thought process that went into it. It wasn't just slapped together, They didn't buy the kitchen cabinets from Home Depot and put them in there. And things nothing wrong with Home Depot, but it's not your high-end materials.
Right, right. No, nothing. Rarely are things off the shelf anymore. It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and you come from a family of architects, so they had to have learned something down the road, So,
Yeah.
so again,
Um,
thank you, Yanni. We're talking with Yiannes Einhorn. And again, your website, I'll say it one more time,
Thank
which
you.
is gridgroup.com. And I hope everyone goes there and checks you out. Thank you,
Yeah.
Yanni. Have a
Me too.
great day.
Thank you, Rick. Be well.
Okay, I'm Rick Kaplan. Until next time.